Therefore, the meetings industry is especially concerned by the effects of the coronavirus measures. It is vital for business events to play a pivotal role in the world's economic recovery from COVID-19. Events are the fast track to economic recovery once the coronavirus crisis has passed and will deliver the best return on investment for companies to access markets again. Positive actions have already been implemented by the many countries globally. From Hong Kong to Denmark, there have been several examples already of economic relief for our industry. In Russia, we also have the governmental support for our companies, and we look forward to survive and start our activities in the nearest future. The global events industry, representing over 26 million professionals, builds community and drives innovation, workforce development, and education. If event cancellations were minimal in February and March, they exploded in April. The largest number of event cancellations have been for events planned in April, May, and June. However, after June, cancellations not drop off. Today, there is a lot of uncertainty about rescheduling. Many events still are uncertain for the second half of the 2020. In this regard, the event industry companies should pay attention to three main points, such as recovery. It will take a long time for most companies, and we have to be ready for some new approaches. Cost cutting. Budgets are taking a hit during these days. Many of companies made changes to their budgets or revenue yet. Qualification level. Skills are critical. Many of event market players have considered or have started reskilling as a result of this business disruption, starting with mastering virtual meetings and digital technologies, as well as online engagement strategies. Some worry about leaving the event industry altogether, while independent business owners are feeling the most stress around their career right now. I hope our speakers will share today with some viewpoints and analytics and give us a global snapshot of the strategies for post-COVID-19 recovery in their regions. Eileen?
Thank you, Alexei, and hello everybody. It's great to see so many industry friends and colleagues logging on and saying hello. Great to have you with us. So just to set the scene, we put out a pre-webinar survey to ask our destination marketing members what you'd be keen to hear of. And as Alexei has so kindly introduced, it's about the post-COVID world, and across the world and across the regions, how are we as an industry moving forward, and what will those new strategies, those tools and those techniques be? So I'm absolutely delighted to introduce the four speakers today from across the globe. We have with us today Glenn Duncan, who is ICCA board member for the North Americas. And Glenn is also the Senior Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer for Ottawa Tourism. We also have Eric Bakemans. Eric joins us as Director of Marketing, Meetings and Conventions at the Netherlands Tourist Board and Convention Bureau. But Eric is actually here today as the co-founder of the European National Convention Bureau. And speakers, please do add yourselves on through your video as you're being introduced so everyone can see you join us. We have Mubarak Al-Shamisi, who is ICCA board member and director of the Abu Dhabi Convention and Exhibition Bureau, to give the view from the Middle East. And finally, we're delighted to have Ms. Lulan Mao, who joins us as Director of Conventions from the CCPIT based in Chengdu, China. Alexei, over to you for the first question.
Thank you, Eileen. We have an extensive geography today: North America, Middle East, Europe, and Asia. In this regard, I'd like to ask our speakers today to share some thoughts, analytics, new experiences, new approaches, and perspectives for the time after COVID-19. And our first destination is Europe, Amsterdam. I'd like to give the floor to our first speaker, Eric Beckermans. Eric, what is your point of view? How is Europe preparing for the post-COVID-19? Could you please share with us with a snapshot of the strategies for the post-COVID-19 recovery?
Thank you, Alexei. Just to be sure, do you want me now to start on the research project or my that one, right?
Right.
Okay, sorry, just to have that right. Hello, everybody, all over the world. I'd like to see you better in Frankfurt or somewhere else in real, but it's simply not possible, so we have to deal with the technical solutions which we have here. So today I'm presenting to you in my function as co-chair of the Strategic Alliance of the National Convention Bureaus of Europe, which is a mouthful, which I will not use anymore. So a couple of weeks ago, my co-chair Matthias Schulze from the German Convention Bureau and myself sat together with the possibility, when he introduced the possibility of having a research project on the impact of the coronavirus on Europe's convention sector. And soon after, all our European peers followed in this initiative, which has been executed by Oxford Economics and their subsidiary Tourism Economics. To manage the expectations, of course, we were made familiar with the concept of first outcomes of this project, of this research project, and some of the assumptions were rather optimistic. So we had to go back to the drawing board. So what I'm about to share with you are basically the approach on how the project was executed and the objectives. So that's what I will take you on with. But the final outcome of the project is to be announced in a later stage because of the reasons I mentioned before. So let me get started by the study objectives, which have been formulated. It produces basically a quantitative assessment of a short-term impact of the crisis on the European convention sector and the medium-term implications of reasonable recovery scenarios. So the first step of the assessment was to quantify the size in terms of visitors and associated expenditure of the European convention sector as of 2019. And following that, a baseline has been forecasted to assess the most likely impact of the coronavirus and the shape of the recovery. And last but not least, the fourth objective was the final step of the assessment, which was to develop a set of alternative scenarios to be considered alongside the baseline to reflect the possible range of outcomes from this crisis. So the study parameters were that the convention sector is defined as the meetings and conference center and conferences components of the MICE industry. So for this study, a developed estimate has been done for Europe as a whole. And for that, also the individual countries were having the possibility of having their own country study done based on the data they have supplied, in combination with the data which is already in existence with Oxford Economics. And most European countries have participated and financed also. So the methodology was the visitors, then the average length of stay, the spend per visit, and the total expenditure. Now I know, as all of us do, that the impact of expenditures only of delegates is not the full size of the economic impact of our industry. But this was the most common data which was available. And I know that there are many other ways to calculate the economic added value of our industry, but that's not taken into account in this project, unfortunately, but that's what we have to deal with. So the headline figures, the spending, the European convention market supported about 63.8 billion of visitor spending in 2019. Overall, event visitor spending has increased by almost 10 billion since 2015. Across Europe, 3.6 million businesses, conventions, and events were hosted in 2019, supporting 501 million visitors. In this outcome, the domestic and international shares of total event spending were basically 25% domestic spending and 75% of international visitor spending. Now, the baseline development could be divided into three factors, in particular in driving the impact of the crisis. Event cancellation or delays, implemented voluntarily by organizers or in response to government restrictions and crowd gatherings. 2, official travel restrictions. And 3, risk aversion. This risk aversion does originate by potential attendees, leading to the cancellation of planned attendance or events. Now, here's the trick on the baseline assumptions. These are under review, and this has to do with the fact that Oxford Economics found that basically at this time, in their view, September would have recovered. Now, I think all of us may easily say that this is unfortunately will not be the case. In September, the situation will not have returned to near normal at all. So this is under review and should be re-examined. However, some lingering negative sentiments, effects resulting in a reduction in average event attendance in 21, 22, will be off 25 and 5% before recovering. Now, for the scenarios, there are 2 alternative scenarios. Our first scenario would actually consider what the impact on the convention sector would be if the channels of negative impact were far more prolonged than is currently anticipated. That's the downside scenario. This does not recover before April next year. The second scenario considers the impact if the crisis is brought under control in the next few months, with the majority of restrictions being lifted shortly thereafter. This is the upside scenario. Now, we don't know when this is going to happen. We only know that if a vaccine has been made public and made available to the general public, then things might go rather rapidly. So both the assumptions are under review at this time. So next steps for this project, and which will be made public within the countries who are participating, is the adjustment of these scenarios, the finalization of the general report, and the country reports for each and every individual country who has participated in this project. For now, that would be the final, well, not the final result, unfortunately, but my comment on the research projects, which should be finalized anytime, hopefully by the end of next week. Back to you, Alexei.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Eric, for the interesting information, for interesting facts and figures and some analytics and some forecasts from your side. But we will come back to you later. And now we are going to North America. Our next speaker is Glenn Duncan from Ottawa, Canada. Glenn, please, what is your recovery plan for the future? What strategy is in place?
Thank you very much, Alexei. Thank you for the introduction. Good day, everybody. Good morning from Ottawa, Canada, or good day to everybody from wherever you're watching in today. It's a pleasure to be here. In my brief time that I have with you today, I plan to give you an idea of how Ottawa tourism has been dealing with the crisis. I think you're seeing a map right now of where we are located in North America. We are the capital of Canada. And I have a very brief amount of time to give you a little bit of insight into how we've been dealing with the COVID crisis and planning for the future. Hopefully there'll be some insights that will be helpful for you to consider in the future. I want to start also just by updating the current situation here in Canada. As of yesterday, Canada has 61,000 cases reported of COVID-19. and 3,900 deaths. In the province in which I live, Ontario, we have 18,000 cases of COVID and 1,300 deaths. The rest of the country is starting to plan their recovery as well. We are a large country, and Ontario and Quebec have been two of the provinces who have been the hardest hit, and different parts of the country are now starting to open up depending on their independent situations. Ottawa Tourism is a not-for-profit organization governed by a board of directors. We're funded primarily by a municipal accommodation or hotel tax with a budget of about $20 million annually, or at least it was before this situation. We partner heavily with the City of Ottawa, the Hotel Association, the Province of Ontario, our Convention Centre, and of course our national marketing arm, Destination Canada. We are now at zero revenues, our DMO here in Ottawa, and our hotel occupancy is below 10% and looks to be below 10% for the majority of 2020. So like many of you, March was nothing more than really a mitigation phase, stopping all spending, restructuring budgets, restructuring business plans, temporary layoffs to half of our staff, and evaluating the immediate priorities really just to stay in business. But once we were able to achieve this, we turned our focus to the future. We saw that while this is a tragic and unfortunate circumstance, to be sure, it's a rare opportunity to pause our entire business and rethink our entire business model. How often do organizations get a chance to recreate themselves in the midst of growth, in the midst of competition and all the chaos that we experience? So we're taking advantage of that opportunity to pause, and we see this journey as having three chapters. Mitigation chapter, which we are now calling complete, a reimagine chapter, which we are undertaking as we speak, and a restart chapter, the date yet to be determined. Like most of the world, we paused all of our marketing with the exception of very soft, empathetic messages on our website and social media channels. And we're only now very gently entering the market with very specific soft marketing to keep our destination top of mind. For example, our Tulip Festival starts later this week. It'll run for 3 weeks, and we're bringing the tulips to the world digitally, virtually, telling people to stay home, not encouraging travel, through webcam, through digital media buy, through content and image sharing. We have a portion of our team dedicated solely to advocacy. So all levels of government are hearing the importance of our economic impact, our job creation, our taxation creation, and how important we are to the tourism economy. And they're hearing that message over and over. And we have a portion of our team dedicated to communications to stakeholders and members, so that we understand their concerns and they understand ours. We have full social media efforts in place, again, with very careful tone of message and images, for example, showing no crowds. And we have a team involved with industry consultations to understand the state of our industry and what is likely to be left when we do reopen. So many local organizations, so many local companies out of business who will never return. We now see the opportunity and the obligation, quite frankly, to create buy local campaigns and stay local campaigns. Ottawa Tourism has been doing a lot of work pre-COVID on our place DNA and community alignment, community pride awareness program. We are now doing this work even more than we were before, as we see when we do reopen the need for our business community and our citizens in general to come along this journey with us, to understand the importance of tourism as being key to our recovery. We're also using this time to retool a website, relaunch website, to work on internal projects that we really didn't have time for in the past, and really to have our systems up to date for when we get back into business. But primarily what we're doing right now is really a reimagining what we could be and what we need to be, and how we need to change to be successful as a DMO. We believe strongly that we will not and we should not be the same as before and operate the same as before. This is now the time to rethink and become a new DMO, and that's what we intend to do. We are modeling our various reopening scenarios backed by health and science, and we're modeling our various financial scenarios and realities. And we're now planning our marketing campaigns as we speak, knowing we'll be speaking to a brand new customer with far less resources to do so. We're investing heavily in data to understand travel trends and triggers, and we will focus almost entirely, probably for a year or two or more, on the domestic market. Our markets will shrink, and we're not sure when we'll be back in market. Now, if we talk a little bit about our recovery on meetings and conventions. What we see happening in the next year or two is we probably will see Canadian National Association business coming back to Ottawa with smaller groups. We do not intend to market a lot internationally. We do not think we're going to see a lot of travel internationally to our destination. Most of the groups that we think we will see that recover will be smaller groups that likely represent large workforces or industries that need to lobby the government. We are the government capital of the country. We also see that we will probably realize small corporate business, also domestic. And we're seeing a little bit of interest from Europe in small international association business in years 2022 and beyond. But as I've already stated, the push will be domestic, and that'll be our focus for some time. Our markets have definitely narrowed. In fact, earlier this week, Air Canada, our national airline, had stated it will take them up to 3 years to come back to anywhere near normal levels of service. Major events and sports also will be domestic in nature for us for the next few years, local, provincial, maybe some national sporting organizations with very minimal spectators. And we may see some Olympic qualifiers in Ottawa if we're lucky in 2021. We continue our work with TIAC, the Tourism Industry Association of Canada, Tourism Industry Association of Ontario, to seek funding, both provincially and federally, to help our organization and the industry, and it looks promising. And we also are taking advantage of federal programs, such as the wage subsidy program, which may allow us to bring back some of our laid-off workers sooner than later. We've also shared with ICCA, who I believe will be sharing with you later today, a link to our destination resilience efforts. There'll be more information there that we hope will be useful to you in your planning to come out of this crisis. In February, we would argue that our industry and our destination had never looked better and had never been stronger. And now everything's been turned completely upside down. We recognize that this has been catastrophic. But now is the time to fight, and we intend to fight back with new models of how we'll go forward with business. And I'd leave you with these thoughts. Strengthen your community alignment. Strengthen the confidence in the DMO through communication over and over, and have your messages clear. Take this time to reimagine what your organization can look like, and do not be afraid to take risks or experiment. Ask yourselves, what should we no longer be doing? What should we do more of? How do we measure success going forward? And what are our markets going to be, realizing it's a brand new world? Advocacy to levels of government goes without being said. This is the time to be heard, and be heard over and over, and be coordinated and collaborate with your stakeholders. And again, identify your new customer, invest in data. The meetings and convention industry is all near and dear to all of us on this call today. And through collaboration like this and these types of efforts, we will rebuild, but it's going to take a long time. And with that, I'll turn it back to Alexi, and I'll look forward to the Q&A.
Yeah, thank you, Glenn. Thank you. You gave us a very interesting snapshot of current situation from North America. And we continue to travel the world. Our next destination is Middle East, Abu Dhabi. Mubarak, could you please share with us some overview and strategies coming out of lockdown?
Thank you, Alexi. Thank you so much. Thank you for hosting me. Thank you for all the attendees and participants with us here today. Alexi, I think what has been shared by Glenn and Eric today gives an overall perspective, I think, and we speak a common language when we talk about the current situation. In regards to the region, let me speak specifically from Abu Dhabi perspective, and then from the United Arab Emirates perspective, and then go to the region, taking it from there. Considering the UAE, I think at the beginning, it is worth noting that the government excellent intervention and efforts in containing the situation country worldwide. The UAE, the United Arab Emirates, has implemented a variety of health and safety measures and developed supportive schemes for businesses and individuals across various industries to help minimizing the economic repercussions caused by the COVID-19. The country has been praised globally for the measures undertaken to contain the spread of the virus and to minimize its impact on the economy. In turn, the level of support creates a sense of optimistic that we think for the future, for the destination and maybe for the region. This is a very challenging time. That we all agree on, I think, and it's been, I think, said more than enough. But it's challenging also to protect the overall dynamic of post-COVID-19. However, close and continuous analysis. This is what we are doing specifically in Abu Dhabi, and I think in the UAE and the region. Close and continuous analysis of the situation paired with good planning is very crucial during these times and will help us definitely to prepare better for the future. The Department of Culture and Tourism, which is the mother company of the Abu Dhabi Convention and Exhibition Bureau, has been working very closely with the other governmental entities and authorities and its partners to develop a rounded plan that considers a range of key factors, including the safety and well-being of residents and visitors, of course, to adhere. Last month, for example, DCT, the Department of Culture and Tourism, Abu Dhabi, we, in answering or in replying to the current situation, we have launched Stay Curious campaign, which encourages consumers to adhere to self-isolation and safety purposes while maintaining element of curiosity of our destination Abu Dhabi by virtually enjoying the offerings. But again, the Abu Dhabi Convention and Exhibition Bureau has also been preparing for this coming period. To your question, Alexei, we have a dedicated team working around the clock, reviewing our existing programs and responding to the needs of our industry partners during this very challenging period. We do understand our stakeholders and partners have very specific requirement needs that they've been affected during this challenging situation. We are developing a comprehensive plans in consultation with the local authorities and industry stakeholders for the next few months. So we have a couple of scenarios that we've giving the next few months or next quarter, which we are hoping that it will not only provide support to the industry players, but also will help us to reboot the events and exhibitions industry in Abu Dhabi faster and more efficiently. Fortunately, the region has also been doing a tremendous great job in responding to the COVID-19, not only during containment phase, but also in the preparation for the future of the post-COVID-19, where the social dynamics and consumer expectation will differ to what they previously looked like before this pandemic. We're seeing countries like countries in the region like the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Oman, or Jordan, to mention just few, have already rolled out a range of effective, and the United Arab Emirates rolled a range of very effective measures and initiatives to help to contain the spread of this virus and reduce the negative impact of this pandemic on their wider industry beyond and bounce back to the program that we hope that we are looking into in the very near future. Now, we do have a feeling that the business will come back, but it will come back maybe in certain phases in the region. I do agree much with my previous panelists that maybe the first attack or the first positive attack for the business or to come back is the local and domestic market and industries, and we will see a good volume of that. But in a nutshell, I think we are very optimistic about the future. I think we are, as human beings and as industries, are wired to bounce back positively after such challenging times.
Thank you very much, Mubarak, for a very positive and optimistic thoughts from your side. May I ask you also, what business events do you see coming back first and when?
What kind of business event is coming back? You mean exhibitions, conferences?
Yeah.
I see from my perspective, and let's say if what I have heard or what I have seen or what I feel from the market, I feel definitely we will start seeing business events from consumer kind of events that's coming toward the market. and it will move to exhibitions and conferences, I think, but it will have the domestic type or element to it. Of course, not mentioning the virtual side of the business events. Huh? I'm not mentioning virtual side. I'm mentioning actual solid events that might happen in destination. Domestically will start first, I think. Hopefully, we'll see international delegates to the mix here very soon. But this will depend on what will be developed from the COVID-19. But this not even touching on the virtual side of things, because this is a totally different story.
Thank you. Let's see, and let's do our best. And now our final destination for today is Asia, China. On the one hand, about 4 months ago, everything has started in China, and the country has had the experience of cancellations and rescheduling of many events. But on the other hand, there was a good example of a quick jump after self-isolation and resumption of normal activities in China. In this regard, I would like to give the floor to Lu, Director of Miss Lu Lanmao, Director of Convention, CCPIT Chengdu. Dear Lu, could you please share with us what is the current situation in China? Are there any events organized in China, and how it works?
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to thank ICCA for hosting this event during the special time. And thank you all for joining us. And I'm glad to have the chance to be here with you. I do wish I could have some more time to show you my city as the hometown of pandas, as a UNESCO city of gastronomy, and as one of the best tourist cities in China. But time is limited. If you are interested, I will be more than happy to email you a brief introduction of Chengdu afterwards. Coming back to the question, about the current situations in China. As you may already know, China was the very first country to fight COVID-19. And since the outbreak, China has taken many strategies to fight against the virus and diminish the likelihood of a second wave. Over the past few months, these strategies have been effective, with almost everyone returning to work and children being back to schools. China has received very good feedback. Furthermore, I'd like to explain how the government responded to the outbreak in more details, using Chengdu mice industry as an example. Since the outbreak, the mice industry in Chengdu has been trying its best to reduce the negative effect of COVID-19. Since the very beginning, we have issued announcements to suspend mass gathering events, and we have worked closely with ICCA to investigate the impact of COVID-19, to forecast the future trends, and give advice to global mice industry. During that period, the industry has put its full efforts into the battle of fighting against the virus. Preparing for the post-COVID-19, the Bureau has launched several strategies to help revitalizing the mice industry. I'd like to introduce 3 of them. The first one is the action plan to promote sustainable development of the mice industry in conjunction with prevention and control of COVID-19. In early March, Chengdu Expo Bureau issued the action plan, united mice industry zones and local associations to assist enterprises to acquire epidemic prevention materials, to train employees, to get financing, to be exempted from rent, to delay the payment for utilities and national insurances. And we have also put in additional funds to speed up the industry recovery. Till now, a total of 53 events have applied for subsidies, including 15 conferences, 33 exhibitions, as well as 5 special events. The second one I would like to introduce is called CBE Good Practice Guidance to COVID-19 for Large Events. It was issued about 1 month ago. The guidance helps event organizers and venue operators to adopt appropriate prevention and control measures when events take place. This includes checking attendees' health codes and body temperature before entry, setting up medical booths and isolation areas with doctor on duty, and regular disinfection work and so on. The third one is the promotion of innovative MICE service models. We issued a guidance document to help Chengdu MICE enterprises better react to future industry changes, especially in the wake of COVID-19. For example, in terms of new technologies, the opinions encourage enterprises to use next generation information technologies, such as big data, cloud computing, 5G, VR, to digitalize conferences and exhibitions. Another example in terms of new models, we encourage a greater diversity of MICE venues, like hosting events on Chengdu's nearly 3,000 kilometers long greenways, which is longer than the distance from Amsterdam to Moscow, or in our beautiful parks to give participants a unique and memorable experience. Yeah, that's the strategies I would like to introduce. Thank you.
Thank you, Liu. Thank you very much. We will come back to you and to our other speakers. And now I would like to give the floor to Aline. Aline, please, are there any questions from the audience?
Thank you very much. And thank you to those that have been putting forward some questions. So first of all, can we come to yourself, Eric? There have been some questions from the audience regarding the Oxford research. Firstly, is it possible for the Oxford research to be shared beyond your European members? And alongside that, it's considering the next steps and what the research is intended to do. Glenn mentioned advocacy and the power of those measures and statistics. What could we share and how are you thinking of using the research to take things forward for your European members? Eric.
So 2 questions, whether the results of the final project will be published. Yes, they will be, as soon as we have all given our blessing on it. So that's question number 1. And the other one was to use the outcomes of the project as indeed to advocate our industry to the European community. Yes, of course. I'm not sure how and when, because it's in our efforts as a strategic alliance, it has been difficult in the past already to apply for funding because they don't or has not been recognized as an industry as such. But obviously now we have a very powerful tool in our hands to really prove the importance of what we do, all of us. So yes, hopefully we will use it. Whether it will land or not, that's something we must see in the future, but I'm sure we will.
Thank you very much, Eric. And Mubarak, may I come to you for a question? There's a question from the audience wondering what is happening with the World Fair that was due to take place in October. Are you able to update us?
Expo 2020, you mean?
Yes, indeed, the World Expo.
Yes, it has been announced officially that the expo will be postponed for 2021. And definitely we are as the Expo 2020, and it's one of the most important events, I think, that Abu Dhabi, the United Arab Emirates and the region and the world will look into Dubai and the UAE by 2021, and we are very excited to look into it, and definitely it will present a very new opportunities and new great initiatives.
Thank you very much, Mubarak, and we wish you all very well with that. There's been a few questions coming in regarding all of the different advice and strategies and policies. And I can refer all of the ICCA members to the ICCA COVID-19 webpage, where we can put some of these strategies and the documents and policies and case studies up for everybody to look into. And I can take on board the note about a survey among ICCA members. We can discuss that with the team to see if there's a way of capturing those case studies and taking those forward. But in the meantime, the ICCA webpage for COVID-19 is up and available, and resources have been put on there. And that includes some of the information you may have seen come out last week from North Star. They did some research on clients and their future buying activity, the future concerns, and they have kindly shared that with ICCA. So that is already available on that webpage. So at the moment, we're coming up to our final 15 minutes. So can I please hand over to Alexei to do some final words and some wrap up of this afternoon? Alexei, over to you.
Yeah, with great pleasure. Thank you, Eileen. I think it was a very interesting, about a short time, but a very interesting discussion. We got many interesting points of view and perspective for further event industry development after COVID-19. And for me, and I think for many people and many companies, self-isolation and quarantine are not permanent. And it is not a reason to give up, but an opportunity for, it's an additional opportunity for development and preparation for serious competition after its completion. And of course, most probably there will be a new world in the nearest future, and we have to be ready for the new challenges. I think it's no doubt. And as for some conclusions after our online session today, what is the main conclusions made by the speakers during our session today? So to my mind, the first, we need an anti-crisis communications, maintaining an active information flow and generating different demand for the destination. It is important to support constant communication with customers, work on loyalty and trust relationship, in other words. We need a support of the industry from the officials, and the current situation we are living in, the current situation is an additional opportunity to deepen this synergy. And we need to reload event calendars. It's absolutely true, I guess, and we can develop joint projects with other industry players, create new collaborations and partner programs. And of course, we need to implement new technologies. We close current issues, optimize the processes and resources of companies, and build projects for growth and diversification. And of course, the main focus and the main conclusion, we have to save the team. We have to train and educate employers and improve their skills. And we have to be prepared for something to go forward. Yeah. These were the main conclusions for me after session today. Ellen?
Thank you very much for those updates and that assessment of the session. Just looking to see if some of the questions coming in there just at the end. Thank you very much, everybody. And there was a question that was being mentioned really about the practicalities of the costs around some of these safety measures and some of these new measures for this new normal that we're talking about. And I'm wondering if any of the team have any thoughts or experiences or updates from their venue members on safety measures, the costs of that going in, and whether that has been discussed at all. May I come to maybe yourself, Eric, first on behalf of Europe? Has that been mentioned, this additional resource around safety?
I've heard not that much from venues, as in, of course, they are. The point is that you can think of all the measurements which can be taken and, of course, then the related cost to it. But it also depends on what the national governments are advising. So it's a little bit of a chicken and the egg story. Whatever you think of, does it or does it not match up to the expectations of the general measurements which have been set in place by our governments? Because even in Europe, measurements are are different from in each and every country. I mean, do you wear face mask caps or not? Or you know, it differs per country. Anyway, so there is a need for obviously for a because also for our meeting planners outside Europe, for in this case, it would be for them also very handy to know if there's a joint European policy on so that all the venues also can take the measurements which are appropriate and not taking measurements which are unnecessary and therefore also costly.
Thank you very much for that update, Eric. A question has come in for Glenn. It's regarding your bid support programme, and the question is whether you have one for your domestic and your national events, and what value you see in some sort of stimulation package for local and domestic business events, and whether you're quite happy to share that sort of thought process with us today.
Yeah, happy to do that. Thanks, Elaine. Great question. If you'd asked me that a few years ago, we would have said most of our incentives and stimulus were more directed towards international business. However, our reality in our world has changed like everybody else's, where the competition is a little greater and a little more fierce. So we do, even pre-COVID, we did have an incentive plan in place for domestic business, and we do see that as probably needing to ramp up. So in our planning right now, we are, because we're going to be so domestically focused, we are looking at building upon our stimulus for local, regional, domestic business programming, and we do see that as part of our strategy and our business plan going forward. We have significant funding directed that way, hopefully as we rebuild our budget. So yes, absolutely, that will be in our plan. Also, just to touch really quickly on the question around safety measures, Canada and the province in which I live in Ontario, we're in the midst of that right now, and everybody is wondering who is taking charge and taking the lead in this type of effort. We're seeing everything from questions coming from clients and potential visitors on the safety in hotels and cleanliness of the convention center. What's going to happen in that regard? And this is an area that we're very interested and concerned about as well, because of our limited resources now in our rebuild. What's our role as a DMO and CBB is going to be very critical. Are we part of the solution from a financial perspective or strictly from a communication perspective? So we're right in the thick of it now, and I agree with Eric that global learnings and coordination, collaboration with this will be very key going forward.
Thank you very much, Glenn. Much appreciated. A question that's come in for yourself, Lou, is around your strategies and whether that is something you are able to share with the team at ICCA. Is that something that you could pass on to us?
Yes, we are very happy to share that. But I think we need to do the translation work first. Yeah, we can share it. Yeah, we're happy to do that.
That's very kind for thinking of us. Very much appreciated. And I realise there are a few questions coming in. as we come to the top of the hour. So what we will do is gather some of the questions. You can still come to Alexi and I with your questions post this webinar as well, and we will put those through to the panel for answers to come back, and any resources or case studies, we will of course put those up on the ICCA pages. And with that in mind, I will say a big thank you to the ICCA team, and we have some slides going up for you just to update you on a few of the other ICCA activities that are coming up into the future. So we will be able to finish on some of those extra added webinars and discussion points that Josephine from the ICCA team will be sharing with us. Alexi, is there anything else for finishing up? Do any of the team have any comments?
I would like to say to everybody, thank you very much. Thank you all. You've been with us today. And take care and move forward. And thank you again. And I hope to see you all face to face very, very soon. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much. Thanks to the speakers and thanks to the ICCA team. Take care, everybody. Stay safe. Bye for now.